Let me maybe put this into a context, because I'm interested if you do the same thing, having your consulting and also a practitioner background. One of the things I love to do, and we're both kind of missionaries still for our subject matter. We're kind of evangelists. We still go around, not necessarily beating people upside the head with a PMBOK. That might come at a later stage. But there's some foundational principles in the PMBOK which I fell in love with a long time ago. And I find that the foundational principles in the PMBOK are really the most valuable part of the PMBOK. Mm-hmm. The problem is PMI, I think sometimes for political reasons, has a certain subtlety on how it communicates it, right? It always communicates it in a kind of vanilla flavor so that nobody would be offended by what they say. And one of the foundational principles that traditional project management identified and people often ignored, and Agile doubled down on it and said, no, it's even more important, and said they called us on it, was the principle that success of a project is not only determined by the project manager and his or her team. The sponsorship and the support, the matrix organization, the line organizations, senior management, executive management participation in large programs is essential for success, right? Mm-hmm. And my personal ugly experience, even after so many years in project management, is I have this saying: 100% of everybody I know uses the word project inflationary. It's a ubiquitous term. Project this, project that. Maybe they call it initiative, maybe to give it a different flavor, but it's a project, right? So I would say 100% of people pretty much have a concept of what a project is. But if you would ask that same sample group what project management is decisively, systematically, step by step, right? I would say you'd be lucky if you look at the global spectrum if 20% know what that formal process is. And I think that's something that's ugly. I would go even a step further. When I talk to executives, I like to tease them a little bit in a friendly sort of way. I said, they say, what do you do? I'm a project management consultant. Great. And it says, do you guys work on projects are essential to our organization. I go, why? Because we use it to deliver our complex services and products to our clients. I say, great. And then I like to ask, you probably do the same thing, right? I ask, well, how many projects do you have in your portfolio? I intentionally use the word, right? Mm-hmm. And then you might get a concrete answer, or they go, I don't know, which is already a red flag if you ask me if I'm talking to an executive, right? Next question, I go, well, how do you select your projects, right? Next question I might ask is, do you have a fixed budget for your project, right? Do you have strategic objectives, right? Do you have MBOs for it? And I notice the more I subtly, it's kind of, you start at the tip of the iceberg and you start working down, the more you ask this question, and this is the ugly point I want to mention too, I think we don't just, in the project management big picture, suffer under the lack of executive attention and awareness, or attention, it's awareness. I'm shocked by how many executives still have an arm's length approach to project management. They want it when they want it. They want it immediately. They want it now. All hands on deck. Damn it, it's an emergency. We better get it done. But if you want to talk about details, they're like, leave me alone with that operational crap. I'm exaggerating here. What's your experience? Do you have a similar experience?
Well, I think it's a very broad kind of concept. I can tell you that one of the things that I was fortunate with is that when I started out in my career in project management, I worked for a mid-size organization in healthcare insurance. And our PMO, and I was a project manager tagged to a PMO, was very much driving strategic initiatives. So that gave me a very specific type of thinking that within the organizational context that I was working within, projects were there to help manage the implementation of strategy. So it was always
an automatic precursor. There was a prerequisite
exactly.
to align with strategy. Yeah.
And this is long before anything around the program management standard or the portfolio management standard came out. It was almost, it was actually our strategy VP had read Good to Great, which is Collins'
Lou
book,
Gerstner.
and at the time thought, well, how do we implement strategy? We're taking strides to devise strategy and engage our executive team, but we need to have a practice to implement it. And that's where the concept behind the PMO, establishing a corporate projects office to oversee and orchestrate the projects. So to me, a lot of the ideas initially that came out around PMOs came out from that experience. Now, I would say that's not always the case because different organizations have different needs. And oftentimes organizations are, the way that projects are launched are not necessarily top down. Sometimes they're bottom up. And so it's very much a different set of needs that I've seen across organizations. And the larger the organization is, the harder it is to control it and orchestrate it. So it's an interesting concept that is not applied uniformly across organizations.
Yeah. I have to apologize. I attributed the Good to Great to Lou Gerstner, which he wrote. I think he wrote Making Elephants Dance. It was Jim Collins that wrote Good to Great.
Exactly. And another, Making Elephants Can't Dance is also a great book by Lou Gerstner as well. But yeah, Jim Collins is the Good to Great guy.